Yeah. So welcome to you all. Today we're bringing together cottage food operators who are really pioneering this process in our state, and sanitarians in training who help keep communities safe by reducing, the risk of foodborne pathogens. And so today we have an opportunity to work together to listen to one another's experiences and to better understand a greater part of the story of cottage foods in Montana. At past workshops, we heard, attendees rated the value of networking among their group of cottage food operators and in mixed groups with sanitarians and other folks interested in cottage food to be of the highest value. So we're excited to offer that opportunity again today through discussion and breakout sessions. I want to offer you a quick opportunity to take the pre-survey if you hadn't had a chance yet. I'm posting it in the chat again so that we can make sure to capture the before the workshop and after the workshop. It shouldn't take more than just a few minutes. And I want to give a quick Zoom orientation. You can unmute yourselves when it comes time for discussion. And you can also, I see a lot of folks on video. Thank you. We love to see your faces. And then over in the middle of the black bar, you should be able to see the chat and open that up. And I've posted links to the pre-surveys. And you can also give reactions. You can clap, give thumbs up. I think that's all the reactions available. All right, and here's what to expect today. So once you've completed your pre-survey, we will continue with this welcome for you all. And then Jan Tusick is going to take us through the history of cottage food law in Montana. Then Nina Heinzinger from Food and Consumer Safety Section at DPHHS will bring us through the cottage food operation basics. So what foods are allowable, how do you register to become a cottage food operator, what are the labeling requirements, and we'll really get through all the basics. Then we'll talk about your home kitchen food safety and also the different risks that COVID brings in terms of interacting with your customers. And then we'll have a half hour for lunch break, and I'll try to be pretty strict about cutting us off at noon so that we all get a break from the screen. Then we'll come back, and at 12:30, we'll begin by talking about marketing your food products. We have a tool at Arrow called the Abundant Montana Map and Directory, and it's a food systems directory that I'm going to welcome all cottage food operators and folks interested in cottage food to consider. And then last, from 1:30 to 2:30, we'll be speaking with Heidi from Eco Montana, which is a certified compostables packaging distributor, and Carl Johnson from Yes Compost, and then Heather Babinazi from Whole and Nourished, who uses certified compostables, and she also has glass service containers that are then returned to her. So learning a little bit about how we can reduce reliance on petroleum-based plastics in our Montana food businesses. And that last session goes a bit beyond cottage food. And so we may have a wider audience there. For those who have just joined, if you haven't had a chance yet, please hop on over to the chat and take the pre-survey. It shouldn't take more than just a few minutes. And I've just reposted it again so that it should be visible to you. Yeah, and we only needed to take the pre-survey once, just a question in the chat box. So if you've taken it, you can ignore that.
Lindsay, this is Jan. I'm on a laptop and I'm trying to join. Can you let me in?
I don't see in the waiting room. No one's in the waiting room right now. Your phone, oh, make co-host. Yep, you will be able to share slides here pretty soon. It looks like you're in.
Well, I'm not seeing anyone, so it's still saying asking to join.
That's funny because we can all see you, Jan, but not your picture, just your name.
Yeah, that's her phone, but it
Yes.
wouldn't allow me to make you a co-host on the phone.
Okay, I'm going to leave the phone. Can you see if I can get in? And
Sure.
then if not, I'll join by phone again.
Okay. All right. So how it started, Cottage Food became available to folks in October 2015, and Arrow worked in collaboration again with DPHHS and Jan at Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center, now Mission West, on some growing food business workshops to kind of make sure that folks knew what opportunities were there for them with cottage food. And we have success stories from that series of workshops available on our website. And after 5 years, in December of 2020, 326 actively registered cottage food operators in Montana offer over 5,000 products in 41 countries or counties. So it really shows that folks are taking advantage of cottage food opportunities. And we conducted a needs assessment because we wanted to hear what further need for education is there in the state. And we heard that educators would like a better understanding of food safety and regulations so that they can support cottage food operators. We heard that some folks were just unsure where to start and what all the requirements are. We heard that folks are interested in just learning about the updates, what's changed in 5 years. And that other folks were interested in the rules, the regulations, and especially how COVID impacted their business. And then from sanitarians, one thing we heard was wondering how other counties do the review process of applications. And so today we're going to cover all of these things. Nina's going to cover most of these questions in her presentation, and then we have a virtual toolkit that I'll give you a tour of on Arrow's website, where we have some additional handouts to bring folks through labeling, the differences of selling cottage foods versus at the farmer's market setting, and a few other special handouts to help folks. And then not least, we have that packaging workshop that'll round us out at the end of the day. We also have begun a working group to expand, to propose some changes to the administrative rule. And you can contact me if you have any questions about that. So with that, we'd love to jump into Jan's presentation here. Jan, I'm gonna make you a co-host so you can share your screen. Great. And Jan is the co-founder and director of Mission West Community Partners, a food, agriculture, and cooperative development center. She has expertise in shared use processing, mitigating food safety risk for co-ops and food businesses, marketing, business and marketing planning, and feasibility analysis, and navigating the food regulatory world. She's also an agricultural producer with 35 years experience, and she and her husband Will market natural lamb, which they direct market. So Jan, I'm gonna make you a co-host here. I see you there. And you should be able to share your screen. I'll stop sharing. Jan, you're muted.
I apologize for the technical difficulties. This has been extremely challenging. I'm going to ask Lindsay to share the screen if she would.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just going to get the presentation up. All right.
Okay, well, it's really great to see so many people on this workshop, which kind of brings the thought that maybe there's a lot of interest in cottage food in Montana, which we've always felt was the fact. But this is even reinforcing our beliefs more, because it was definitely a great opportunity for food business development within the state when this law was enacted. But I'm going to go into a little bit of the history of this, but just I want to thank Lindsay for the brief introduction. Want to just let folks know that as Center Director of the Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center and as a Food and Ag Center for the state of Montana, we are deeply involved with food business development. And so we encourage people that if they have questions to reach out. We have a full-scale food processing facility. We have relationships with food scientists that can help with product development and recipe formulation. So there's quite a bit of buckets of resources that we have that I just invite anyone that if they have deeper needs to reach out. So with that, we're going to talk about how all this started. And again, thank you for Arrow for doing this workshop, and Lindsay, if you want to change. Okay, great, thank you. So I want to share this quote. The most effective way to facilitate good business practices is to provide education before regulation. We prioritize partnership with stakeholders and across agencies to cultivate and communicate best practices for safe food production and marketplace success. And the reason I like to share this quote is that this is really the founding principle behind the development of the cottage food law. And you could go to the next slide, Lindsay. Thank you. It was, just the far history back to 2013. We Grow Montana, which was a coalition of organizations across the state, numerous partners and stakeholders, really felt the importance of cottage food and the lack of the ability to do cottage food in this state. So we started the conversation with legislators and stakeholders and agencies on how we could have a cottage food, the ability to do cottage food in the state of Montana. So in 2013, we were successful in getting legislature to mandate, they call them study bills, but really it was providing resources to bring together key agencies, Department of Livestock, Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Agriculture, to work with stakeholders, Arrow, Grow Montana Coalition members, to bring in that public voice to really determine, what are the needs for cottage food operations in states. So there's a statewide advisory committee established, and we held several meetings throughout the 2 years. And in between those meetings, public hearings were held. So it was a broad platform to build upon, and a lot of information and resources were gathered to really look at what would be in a cottage food law that, number one, would be a proactive cottage food law for the state of Montana, but also had a really high probability of passing through legislature, which was always, in my mind, a very important piece. So when you do this work, when you start developing legislative actions, how you make sure those agencies are stakeholders in it, because they are the ones that usually will be implementing the bill. And the last thing you want to do is go out into legislature and have fractions and against what you're trying to do. So next slide, please. So in 2015, in that session, we, the Grow Montana, Farmers Union, and Arrow, and other partners, we successfully lobbied for the Cottage Food Act, House Bill 478. And it was a seamless process. I mean, I think out of every committee and in final vote, there was not one dissenting vote. So again, laid the platform, came to session with a really strong group of stakeholders, including agencies, and successfully passed a bill. So what did that bill mean? Next slide, please. It created opportunities for food entrepreneurs. So number one, cottage food is a business option. And Nina is going to really dive into, what does that mean to be a cottage food operator? So I won't touch upon that. You can offer free food samples without a retail food license, which was a huge barrier to small food operators when they go to the farmers markets or they went to an open market setting. They had to have a retail food license, which has a cost to be able to just do sampling. So that removed that requirement. We increased more commodity farm products that could be considered a raw agricultural commodity, which means they did not need any kind of licensing or regulation to sell. Honey was the big one. Honey, the previous session had gotten regulated. And so it really shifted that. We have quite a few honey operations in the state of Montana. So this was a big win for honey producers. And it really redefined the definition of retail food establishments with expanded opportunities. So next slide, please. So mobile food establishments can operate under one license. Before, they had to license in every single county, which you can imagine, not only going through that process with every county they want to operate in, but the costs associated with that. So great opportunity for mobile food establishments. And, it is interesting to see the explosion of those establishments across the state. And I do point to this law that enabled that to happen. And then food service vendors can be licensed at, can be set up at a reoccurring event. So they don't have to keep relicensing. And Nina will go into detail of what that means in the sense of how many days. But again, it's cost saving to food service vendors. And these are people who go to fairs, go to community events, and they want to set up a food stand. Now they could do the same menu over a time period versus having to re-register for a single day event every time they had to do it. And there's a due process put into place, which prior was a very convoluted process and very ambiguous and not clear. So now if there's a cottage food operator or retail food operator that wishes to dispute a finding or a denial, that there is a process that they can go through to really move that dispute forward in a very clear manner. And then the new law really wrapped into a broader piece of the retail food law that aligned it with the federal law, and it gave more clear and predictability to the Montana food sector. So it cleaned up our retail food law and more, it just was more aligned with our federal laws. So it, in the end, was much more comprehensive than just cottage food. So it was a win-win on several aspects. Next slide. So I think one thing I'd just like to go through, because it's really important when we talk about definitions in food regulation. And so some of the key terms and definitions that I'm just going to go through are as follows. So a retail food establishment. So a cottage food operator is not a retail food establishment. They sell food directly to a consumer, but they're licensed to do that. So a retail food establishment is a licensed retail food establishment. So the following are not, and that's growers and harvesters of raw agricultural products, because again, we said they do not need to be licensed to sell raw agricultural products. A food stand that offers raw ag products does not have to be licensed. So therefore, it is not a retail food establishment. And cottage food operations, same thing. And Nina will really go into detail on this. She, knows this deeply. But you're not going to get licensed to be a retail food operator. So licensing versus registration. So she'll go into that detail. But so retail food establishments, next slide. So cottage food operator means a person who provides, manufactures, and packages cottage food products only in domestic kitchen and only for direct sale to a consumer. So they are selling direct. They're not in a licensed facility to make their product because that's considered a commercial operation, commercial retail operation. They do it in their domestic kitchen. And they can only produce foods that are not potentially hazardous. And again, Nina will go into that list of foods, and that these foods are only made in a cottage food operation. So that's the definition of cottage food. Raw agricultural commodity is any food in its raw, unaltered state. Fruits, vegetables, raw honey, and grains. If you cook, can, preserve, combine with other food products, peel, dice, cut, blanch, it's no longer raw. So raw product is, a direct harvest or even a plant, a living plant in a plug you see nowadays quite often is considered a raw agricultural product. Next slide. So potentially hazardous foods. These are food products that require time and temperature control for safety. So this is the oversight piece that was part of that strong negotiation with there are agencies that regulate food, is that there was a determinant that cottage food operators could not make potentially hazardous food in their domestic kitchens and be registered as a cottage food operation. So any food that you make that they require time and temperature control for safety is considered potentially hazardous food. I want to go into a bit, unless there's any questions. I know that Lindsay has the ability for people to raise hands or go to the chat box. But I do want to go into some information here if there aren't any questions about potential resources that are available to cottage food operations. The Food and Ag Development Center was established in 2007 through legislative action and consisted originally of 4 centers. Our center, the Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center, Great Northern EDC, Ravalli County, and Joel Beartooth. And these centers were established to help food businesses in their development. That is our charge. The program exists today. It is housed out of the Department of Agriculture. It is legislatively instated with funding to support these centers. So these are your resources to go to. If you have a food business idea, even a cottage food business idea, these people, they're scattered across the state. There's another slide that shows additional centers and their contact information, which you have access to. These are the people that can really help you in your food business development. So please reach out to them. They're the go-to to move your idea forward. Next slide. Other business resources are the small business development centers. There's a host of business planning resources on their website. The Department of Agriculture, of course, is a go-to for any, raw ag commodity questions. Farmers markets, great resource for farmers markets information. They have a really good website with linkages that can guide you to other resource bases. The Department of Commerce and the Department of Agriculture also is the the holder of the Grow Through Ag program. So I've known several cottage food operators that expanded their operation and decided to go into broader markets, and that they were able to get the Grow Through Ag program to help them with that. Have worked with several food agricultural operations that have also done it. The Department of Commerce is also a resource base for business planning and development. They have numerous funding streams that are definitely geared for larger operations. But again, if there's a growth here and you see yourself moving into those directions, these would be resources. And then, of course, the Department of Health and Human Services, and Nina is going to be really diving into what she does. They're a tremendous resource in the regulatory world, and are, in my opinion, the most user-friendly agency we have. They've worked closely with the food businesses we work with. If we have issues that need to be resolved, they work directly in tandem with the food and ag centers to help resolve those issues. They are our go-to for many questions. So great resource. So I think, unless there's any questions. Are there any questions, Lindsay? I can't see the
Great.
chat.
In the chat, Nina said the development centers, meaning the food and ag development centers, can help with business plans and getting started. They're a great resource. And of course, Jan can speak to that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's exactly what we do. At the Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center, we not only have a food processing facility that food businesses can access, but we work directly with them in their business planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I do apologize for the technical issues. I don't know what's going on. I've never had this problem before. So apologize. There's some weird stuff going on with our system.
All right. Next, we'll have a chance for some breakout sessions. So I'm just going to get us there. Any other questions in the meantime? Folks can unmute themselves. Okay. Okay. Great. There we go. Okay, get us back on track here. All right, so here are our breakout questions. Should be coming up on your screen now. So we have 12 groups that are from groups from 5 to 8, and we really worked hard to get a cottage food operator or someone interested in cottage food mixed in with folks who are educators or kind of just curious, mixed in with sanitarians in training, because we had heard in previous workshops that that was just such a value. And so this is a chance to introduce yourself, where you're calling from today, why you're interested in the workshop, your level of experience with cottage foods, and what you hope to learn today. And these breakout rooms will be the same all day. So you'll be able, this is a chance to start to get to know the folks in your group, and then you'll be able to meet with them each session throughout the day. It would be excellent if one person could be a note taker, and I have a notes template here that I'm going to put a link to in the chat box. So you can take notes right on that Google Doc. Each group can take notes under the heading, or you can download it and keep notes for yourself. But well, there are a series of questions throughout the day in the breakout rooms that we'd love to kind of capture your answers from. So if you can nominate a note taker once you break out. All right, any questions about breakout rooms? Once I hit go, you will be prompted to just head to your breakout room, and then at the end of the time, I'll hit end and it will prompt you again to come back to the main room. So any questions?
How long of time in the breakout rooms?
Great question. We're at 9:30 and we don't have to start the next session until 10. So we have quite a bit of time for introducing yourselves, and with between 5 and 8 folks in the group, you know, you have about 5 minutes each to kind of answer the questions and get to know one another. I will broadcast the questions again because you'll lose sight of the slides once you're in the breakout room. And I know it's really hard to remember what all these questions are. So I'll get those in the chat, or I'll do them in the chat and I'll broadcast them. So great question, thanks. All right, seeing no other questions, I will open up the rooms.
Excellent. Hello.
Oh. I see some familiar faces. Welcome, everybody. Who'd like to get us started?
I can start.
Great, thanks.
So my name is Katrin Finch, and I am in Cascade County. I work with MSU Extension. I'm the Family and Consumer Sciences agent here in Cascade County. I don't know, when I first started Extension, Cottage Foods were just beginning. And so I had heard mumblings, but it was too much to add to my plate in terms of getting to know what my job was, as well as learning this new kind of area of food processing and safety. So I'm interested because I have the capacity now to kind of dive deeper into cottage foods. I also think with COVID and some of the classes that I teach, I'm seeing a little bit more interest in being able to provide things like cottage foods. So I suspect that interest will continue to grow. So my level of experience is 0. And I honestly, I just hope to learn a working knowledge of cottage food. So if somebody does come to me, that I can point them in the right direction without sending them on a goose chase of, well, I think you can go here or here. I'm not really sure. So I can give them a little bit of a stronger path.
Katrin, would you be willing to take some notes for the group unless someone else has already offered?
I got it started. At the
Okay.
bottom of that notes page, I think people are figuring out how to keep their own space in there right now.
Sure.
So I missed part of what Katrin said and I apologize because I was
okay.
fighting for space.
That's okay. I can pop in there and add mine if you want.
Sure. It's at the
Okay.
bottom, breakout group 5.
Okay, perfect.
I'm just gonna make sure, yeah, I'm gonna pop out and in, but I'll be right. Hi, folks. If any of you have just joined us, we are in breakout rooms, just introducing ourselves to our breakout room. And I am assigning to all of you. So let me know if you're having any trouble.
Of sugar content requirement and some of the questions from the operator versus how the rule read. So kind of hope we can address maybe some of the specific information regarding that. Otherwise, I don't have the most expansive experience, just have reviewed a few. So looking to learn a lot more.
Great. And where are you located now, Carmen? I missed that.
Oh, Carmen, you're muted.
Sorry. I'm in Great Falls, Cascade County Health Department. Thanks.
And I'm actually a coworker of Carmen's. I am more green than her. I have been here for just over a year now at Cascade County City County Health Department as a registered sanitarian. I decided to do this workshop because I'm relatively new to the whole process and just wanted to learn more about all of it. I have received 2 applications in the last year that I've been reviewing. One of them never followed through with some stuff and another I'm working with currently. So hopefully I'll get to approve one of these days. So just kind of wanted to learn more about the process and possibly talk to some of the operators too and hear their input on things as well. One of the things that I find interesting in the last year, I've sent out probably at least a dozen applications, but only received back 1 out of the 12 that I sent out. So I'm really interested to know if there's anything that is preventing people from following through with the process of doing the cottage food application, if there's something that's just too complicated, or if there's some other factor that's just preventing them, or if there's just an interest factor and then they decide, this isn't for me. So I was kind of interested to hear that and get that input. The cottage food application I'm working on now is actually really interesting. She's a woman originally from the Philippines, so it's been an interesting one to learn different ingredients and how exactly that fits in with cottage food law. Just because they're things that I've never even heard of, ingredients. So just kind of how to work through that process of if you get a really unique recipe, since cottage food is quite a bit stricter than obviously retail food establishment menus, and have to be really particular about what they're making, learning how those kind of more unique recipes fit into cottage food. So
Is there internal guidance about what to do, like when you get an ingredient or a recipe you're unfamiliar with? Like, what happens next?
Nina is our go-to at DPHHS. So pretty much anytime that I have had a question about a recipe or a particular ingredient, she's been my go-to. So she's been working with me on the couple of unique recipes that this woman sent in. So one of them, the particular ingredient that I had never heard of was actually, it's called ube, and it's a purple yam out of the Philippines. And knowing the sugar level of that, and she wanted to use that as a filling for some of her rolls and stuff like that. So including that in it was it's like I've never heard of this. I don't know anything about this. So and I tried to do my own research. I try to find out as much as I can before I contact Nina. But she has much more extensive resources and experience than I do. So she's a really good resource to be able to reach out, and she's very good about getting back with information. So.
And I second that.
I wonder how it happened that 3 folks from Great Falls all ended up in the same breakout room. I don't know. Kate, have you had a chance to introduce yourself? Oh, you're muted. Kate, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I usually keep myself off mute. No, I introduced myself while you were off because I figured you know me fairly well. And what I said of why I'm interested is just, I find myself interacting with people about the food system in lots of different ways. And it's helpful to understand the differences, and the more nuance I know, the difference between retail and cottage food, and the issues faced by cottage food and the issues not faced by cottage food, like being able to dispel myths or help people understand nuance is a position I end up in, even if I'm not officially. No one who's trying to start a cottage food business is going to come to me for advice. Like, that's not my role.
Sure.
Unless it was totally informal and off the record.
Great. Well, with Nina, we've developed some handouts for the toolkit that's really geared towards kind of being a one-stop shop for cottage food operators to help answer their questions. So I encourage y'all to take a look at that and see if they seem useful to when you get questions. And it's at the same link where you registered, not the Zoom link, but the arrow link where the workshop was, like that page where it said register here, and I'll put it out through the chat again, and we'll go through the virtual toolkit today. But really welcome feedback, and would love to hear from you all. Like, what kind of questions do you get that you wish you had a handout for, or any of the kinds of tools that we could work together to develop to make this an easier process for everybody. All right, with that, I'm going to pop into another breakout room, and then I will like summon you when it's time to come back to the main room. So thank y'all. Very good. And I think everyone's back from breakout rooms. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions right now. And once we've answered some questions,